Hey everybody, sorry for the delay. I was editing today's video or videos for you on Patreon because there's a patron companion video that goes along with it. So I was getting everything ready for that and trying to get it done, but just took longer than expected. And I had a video that I wanted to post on Tom Hardy on my social media. So just a bunch of stuff happened to get in the way of my plans, but we are here now ready to answer questions. And so literally what I was doing, I was eating. So if you see egg on my face, it's not metaphoric, it's literal egg on my face. And that I just finished eating so that I can be energized to talk with you and answer your questions and all of that fun stuff. Let's see. Oh, what have I done? Sorry, trying to move my post this in the Facebook group, drag things around, and got sticky hands from eating my food. Not the best time to be playing around with my computer. Kicking things off. Majestic Demon says, "How are you doing this afternoon?" I'm good, just busy. Getting everything posted for everybody, and it just takes time sometimes. Fall behind, it happens. Gamerman, hey Sean, thank you for late because I was having payment problems. I would have missed half of the chat. Not sure what that's referring to, but glad that you can make it. Nicholas, hello. Gamerman, it's also my 20th birthday this past week. Very cool. Happy birthday. 20s are an interesting decade of your life because you figure out adulthood and in theory find a direction and find a spouse, and lots of things happen in your 20s frequently, not always. Obviously, these are not guarantees, but it's one of those transitional decades that there's all these milestones of life that you might not, nobody hits all of them, but you'll hit some of them. Have fun. Bryce Bailey, hey Sean, how's your week? It's been good, busy. I've been homeschooling the kids, and so it's been a transition to figure all of that out, and just trying to keep the channel going, keep some other projects I'm doing while figuring out how to homeschool. So I think we just about got it figured out, got a nice balance to it. We're not figured out, but we have a balance to it. We have an idea what we're doing and a plan. Whereas a week ago, we're like, we don't know what we're doing. We just got to, but we're moving forward. Rich Reviews, Winston Groom, the author of Forrest Gump, has died at age 77. Well, that is sad. It's a great movie. Haven't read the book, but he's the origin of it all. Dayton, hey, I know you don't watch old movies, but have you seen any Hitchcock movies? And if so, how do you feel on his style? I mean, I wouldn't phrase it the way you did, that I don't watch old movies, because I do. It's just not what I gravitate. That's not what I primarily watch. So, I mean, I've seen North by Northwest, Psycho, Birds, Rear Window, all the big iconic ones. I've seen them at different times over the years. I haven't watched any recently to be able to give a take based off of Sean Chandler, movie critic guy. So I don't feel I can really give an adequate answer that reflects who I am today, and my analytical skills. The person you subscribed for, the person that you joined on Patreon for, has not watched these movies. So I couldn't give you a definitive answer. I can say, though, however, right there in my fan mail, I got someone that sent me the collection of his top 5 kind of iconic films. So it's very much on my mind to check those out and give them a watch and see what we can make of that. But I unfortunately don't have a better answer for you. Luke, the film fan, favorite Parks and Rec character? I'll probably go with Ron Swanson. Ron Swanson, the libertarian that works for the government. He's the correct answer. Rich Reviews, congrats on Twitter finally getting rid of Sean Chandler out of context. Yeah, if you don't know what he's referring to, there's someone that created a out of context account for me, which I'm cool with that. If someone wants to graphics of me out of context. As long as they're not crass, I don't want people to like make sexual jokes out of my faces and stuff like that. I wouldn't be okay with that. But in general, if you want to take funny pictures of me and GIFs and weird statements I make and gestures I make, and I'm all for that. But so this person did this in January of 2019, and then a week later they stopped, but they didn't stop using the account, and they just started trolling people, and it's kind of been escalating. And I don't know the person. I don't know who they are. Someone's so it started getting really bad. I mean, racist, sexist, bigoted, telling people to kill themselves, like really bad behavior that clearly violates terms and services. And the person openly says it. They're like, yeah, I'm just trying to get a rise out of people. I'm not racist, sexist. I'm the farthest from any of those things. But people need it. Just one of those people that are a person that's just not well. Or any way you put it, whether they're just evil or they're a person that is just so desperate for attention that they've just turned to anything. Really gross stuff. So since May, I've been trying to get this person removed, and I've publicly called them out. Even just a month ago, 3 weeks ago, something like that, another Twitter account that does comic book movie news. Some of their staff had been bullied by this person. So they ran a whole report on this person. They interviewed people and stuff, and interviewed me and posted this whole deal, and supposedly found out who it was. It might actually be a girl, which is pretty surprising. Doesn't seem like typical behavior. I wouldn't think, and especially because they're using my name, it's a little bit surprising. But so they've been removed a few times from Twitter, or at least they've left. And supposedly this time, Twitter evaluated their content and said they violated the rules and removed them, which is a good thing. But it's been kind of a nightmare, and there's been some people that have tried to hold the account against me, especially this last week it happened. That's actually what led to the account getting removed, is that the account told someone to kill themselves. And so someone was like, Sean, why is someone using an out of context account saying this? He was like, well, I don't have any control of it. I've been trying to get them removed for a while. And they're like, why are you following them? Well, I'm just trying to keep track of someone that's using my name and my face. So I just need to keep track of them. I'm like, well, you shouldn't. That validates them by following them. And they retweeted me out, retweeted themselves out to their 700 followers, presenting me as a villain in this situation when I'm a victim. And so it's been just a really crappy situation. And so it's because of my efforts, this person's been removed from Twitter, but there's people trying to present me as the person encouraging them or something like that. It's really weird. So they're gone for right now. I'm sure they'll be back. I don't have any faith they're gone for good. But just give me, I bought a bunch of Blu-rays in the last 2 days. Among them is Jaws, Karate Kid, Dark Knight Rises, Man of Steel, Incredible Hulk, Black Panther 300, and Mr. Peabody in Sherman. Very cool. Gamerman, what are your thoughts on Iris West Allen? I'm surprised that a lot of people hate this character. I think she's okay. She's not Lana Lang or Felicity, the worst. I think that they've used the character poorly, and they positioned her to be someone that would be made fun of. They positioned her, and through the writing, they haven't made her whiny like some of these other characters that you've mentioned. But the problem they did is they made everybody a member of the team. And so where she had an interesting dynamic in Barry's life and being kind of separate from this whole thing that kind of grounded him, then they added her to the team, in which case then she's just it just removed the dynamic from the show and put her in kind of a weird position in regards to her husband. It's like, it's well known that husbands and wives aren't great in the workplace together normally because it's just a really weird dynamic. And they tend to have unique ways they interact with each other. So when you put them on a superhero team, there's reasons that gets weird, and it has on all these other shows too. And then they made her the leader of the team for windows of time and in certain ways. And it just didn't make any sense. It was like, why is a writer for a reporter for a blog or a newspaper suddenly the leader of a superhero team? Why would they put her in that role? And so it was that. Like, I'm sure I've complained about her in reviews and videos I've done before because they put her as the leader of the team. It just wasn't a good decision. Bryce Braley, when Dune comes out, do you plan on ranking all the English language Denis Villeneuve films? What did I do? New films. What is your favorite right now? I don't have a favorite. I wouldn't pick. I wouldn't. I couldn't. I wouldn't do that. I haven't watched enough of them recent enough or back to back to each other to pick one. I don't sit around with knowledge of favorites. I do plan on ranking all of his films when Dune comes out. Arrival, I wasn't the biggest fan. Like, I'm not someone that goes bananas for any of his movies. The way that other people do. Arrival in particular, I was like, okay, that's cool, but people are telling me it's like the best sci-fi movie in 20 years, and I don't know about that. Sicario is a very cool little tense thriller. I liked Blade Runner 2049 more than I enjoyed the first Blade Runner, but they're also not movies that I go back and re-explore a whole lot, so it's a little bit tough to pick a favorite when it's not something that I haven't watched them next to each other, and they're all movies that I go, these are very well made, but they're not ones that I go back towards a lot. David Patterson, I'm going to rewatch The Social Network after this. I can't stop watching it. Facebook is very interesting, as well as Double the Army Hammer. Hey Sean, what are you and your kids? Have you and your kids played Fall Guys? Nope. Don't really know what it is either. I mean, I've heard people mention it, but I don't know what it is. Crystal, hey Sean, I was wondering, what are your thoughts on the movie Heat? What's your thoughts on the movie Heat were? So I haven't really watched Heat in a long time. It's been over 10 years since I've watched the movie Heat, and back in the late 90s, early years, that's the sort of stuff I watched it many times, but then it. Marriage, all kinds of things. I haven't watched it in quite a while. So I can't really chime in to give any sort of meaningful take on Heat that I recall of kind of some of those classic crime thrillers that I watched during that era. It wasn't one of the ones that immediately popped out to me the way it did for other people. But that's not, it wasn't, I didn't say, I didn't like this. It wasn't that. It was just the way that other people, man, I loved Heat. I didn't have that experience with it, so it wasn't one that I've re-explored as much. Luke, the film fan, have you seen any Woody Allen films? I have, but not many, and I don't recall which ones. I think it could be mistaken, but there's like a Luke Wilson one from not too long ago. I know I watched that fairly recently. I think he directed it, but I could be totally wrong about that. But I would not have any interesting takes on Woody Allen. Bryce Bailey, what actor would you like to see in a Nolan film? I would love to see Patrick Wilson or Ben Mendelsohn. I don't know. I've never thought about it from that angle. Because, I mean, you think any kind of great actor, I'd be for appearing in a Christopher Nolan film because he's a great director. But it's tough to say, hey, I want this person to be in his movie without knowing what the movie is, without knowing what type of film it is. And so the kind of turns into who's an actor that I enjoy. So I don't think I would have an interesting, I mean, I've never thought about that before. I don't know that that's not the way I normally think about things. Like maybe I thought a little bit. You thought it would be like fun to see Stallone in a Tarantino film, but I don't think that's an original thought to me. I think I saw an article or something of actors that refused to be in a Tarantino movie, so it just planted the idea in my head of like, what if Stallone kind of got the Tarantino treatment? That's kind of interesting. That's now you have my brain working, but I just don't naturally gravitate towards that way of thinking of from what actor would I want to work with this director. It's much more of like, if I knew this director is making this type of movie, it just narrows it down more to have a path to think through what actors could fill the type of characters that they write and put in their movies. But broadly speaking, I don't have an answer. Rich Reviews, I'm more convinced than ever that the November election won't be free and fair. And also last night, the trolls just came out with a vengeance. I'm not really going to get into politics. I think there's too much of everyone is playing teams, and I don't want to play teams. I get very frustrated very quickly with people on both sides saying things that just assume the worst of the other side. And there's a lot of that, and that's what ratchets up the tension, is when we only can see the other guys as the bad guys and think we have to win. That's really dangerous. And it's making for very scary times right now in light of last night's news, an election coming up, and where tensions are already at, and the amount to which everyone is just playing to win. They're not thinking, assuming the best of people. They're assuming the worst of everyone else. They're misconstruing situations, and it's neither side can acknowledge their own side's faults, and they can't acknowledge the other side's positives. It's very discouraging to see people behave in this manner on such a massive scale. Bryce Bailey, Griffin seems to be interested in a Tenet sequel or spin-off. Does this interest you, or do you think doing so could fix a lot of problems with the original film? Well, I mean, it wouldn't fix problems with the original film. They could make a sequel that wouldn't have the problems of the original film. I mean, I've been in several of the podcasts I did with Griffin. We talked about this, and I'm open to it if that's what Nolan wants to do, and if he can understand the flaws of this film, that if he can fix some of that, I'd be for that. I'm open to it. It's not what he normally does, but then again, he's done a lot of different things, and maybe it's time that he wants to make this his own sequel or make his own franchise. And maybe also he has other plans in mind, and he has proteges in the works, and he's thinking that this person will continue the franchise and he'll develop the story with it. I don't know, but I'm open to it. They made a movie that lent itself well to continuing, and there's even potential to, without wanting to say too much about what happens in the last 10 minutes of the movie, there's all kinds of ways that characters can come back because you have time that's doing this and going in different ways. So there's just a lot of possibilities. Dayton, most rewatched Marvel movie, it would probably be this Spider-Man 1 and 2. Of all time, it would be Spider-Man 1 and 2. I would imagine it would be one of those two. I could just be missing something, but I would believe, just because they had a head start over the MCU, Spider-Man movies by their nature pretty rewatchable. They're great movies, so I'm pretty sure those would be the ones that I rewatch the most. Tyler Garcia, hey Sean, my wife and I are considering moving to Austin area in the next 2 years. What is your favorite part of the Austin area? I mean, it's tough to give an answer. What's my favorite part to it? Because I've just been here my whole life, and so I just know it. And favorite part can mean a lot of different things. Like if you're looking for like what's the swankiest part of Austin, it's Westlake, and that part of town that's just on these hills and by lakes, and it's very expensive to live in. I've always been in the northern suburbs, so if you're talking normal suburban stuff, I would start by looking at Cedar Park or Round Rock. I'm right now I'm more Round Rocky area. I'm not in Round Rock, but I'm right next to Round Rock. I spent a lot of time in Round Rock. And then Cedar Park is 5-10 miles down the road from Round Rock, and they're just both nice, safe suburbs. Round Rock is very frequently listed on best suburbs in America. Cedar Park's also great. So there you go. And it's not, I've never actually, well, that's not entirely true. I've spent very little time actually living in Austin proper. I've lived mostly in the suburbs. David Patterson, I am 80 pages into Dune, and I'm absolutely loving it. I've never read it. I actually don't even know the story of it, really. Majestic Demon, it's funny to me how people started sending you DreamWorks films after I sent you Rise of Guardians. By the way, looking forward to that ranking whenever it happens. And it continued. I haven't put the video out yet, but I filmed the next unboxing, and I think I got 2 or 3 more DreamWorks movies. And across the board, people are like paying attention. To what movies I do and don't own. And so they're sending me all these DreamWorks movies I've never seen and don't have access to. So it's actually kind of cool when people care that much about stuff that, send you a thoughtful gift. Those are the gifts that really kind of matter. Speaking of thoughtful gifts, Comics Man, hey, hello, Sean. Have you seen Snowpiercer? Yeah, I had sent it to my fan mail. Someone was interested in my take in it, and they sent it to me earlier this year. And so we watched it a couple months back. And, yeah, it was a solid film. that had, interesting ideas about class. It had thrills, action, bleak, dark twists, all kinds of stuff like that. So I enjoyed the film. I debated putting like a review on, putting some thoughts on the internet somewhere about it. I just didn't know. I didn't feel like I had anything interesting to say. I was like, yeah, this was well made, but it wasn't something that like elicited a very specific, distinct response to me to have a take on it. It was just, that was a well made thing. Nicholas, do you think the movie Heat the best Pacino De Niro movie since The Godfather? What do you think the movie Heat is the best Pacino De Niro movie? I mean, it's the first movie they did together since that one, and they didn't, and since The Godfather Part 2, because De Niro's not in the first Godfather. Is it? I'm not quite sure what you're asking, and it's also a little bit tricky because, as per what I mentioned in here earlier before, I haven't watched Heat in over 10 years, so it's tough to like say, hey, this is the best when I haven't watched it in a long time, and and they hadn't done a movie together since The Godfather Part 2. And so then if you're asking, is it the best movie that any of them have been in since The Godfather or The Godfather Part 2, probably go with no on that one, because you have Taxi Driver in there and a bunch of other stuff that's just classics from them. So I think I would go with no, but I'm not quite sure what you're asking. Bryce Bailey, do you think Jonathan Majors as Kang will be a one-off villain in Ant-Man or continue to make appearances? Ultron was a big comics villain, and he was a one-off, so it makes me wonder what MCU will do. I don't know enough about Kang to even have a theory as to what they would use the character for, or where they're heading with that. It's tough to entirely compare it to Avengers because it's Ant-Man. It's not Avengers. So it's not as big of a film in that regards. The Ant-Man movies don't make nearly as, I mean, they make half. They make a third as much as Avengers movies make. They actually make less than that. They make less than half of what the low-earning Avengers movies make, and made less than a quarter of what Endgame made. So it's tough because they're just not as big of movies. They don't have big a budget, so it's tough to know. But I can't. I don't really have a guess because I don't know the character or it. From the sound of it, it sounds like the rumor speculation is that they want the character to be a big deal in the MCU. But as you mentioned, Ultron was supposed to be a big deal, so I don't know. Rich Reviews, will you be watching the Amazon Studios Blumhouse movies? I mean, you'd have to. I don't decide whether I'm going to watch a movie based off of the streaming service and studio. I decide that based off of the movie itself and the moment. So you would have to say, are you going to watch this movie? And I would have to know what that movie is. So as per, would I watch an Amazon Studios Blumhouse movie? Well, of course I would. I tend to like Blumhouse, and I think Blumhouse's model lends itself to making lots of money in the theater or movies that you can put on streaming and not lose money. So I would tend to be pretty open to anything like that, and would be interested to see what they're going to do. But I mean, I can't. There's not like the question. I don't have a clear answer to it because the question's phrased in a way that it's like I don't think about things in that way. Luke the Film Fan, have you seen any of the Christopher Guest mockumentaries? Yeah, I've seen Best of Show. Of course, this is Spinal Tap. I think at least one more. Let me look him up real quick. Christopher Guest. There we go. I think there's Waiting for Guffman. I've seen Waiting for Guffman. Definitely seen Best of Show. And then like Mascots, A Mighty Wind, For Your Consideration. I haven't seen that stuff. I haven't seen those ones, but the ones I have seen, I've enjoyed. I think that they have a funny style to them. Of course, this is Spinal Tap. He didn't direct it, but that was kind of the source of where some of this came from. That would be the best of the batch that I've seen. And then Best of Show, I think. And then Waiting for Guffman. I don't really remember much of anything about Waiting for Guffman. Congressman, what are some of your favorite performances from Dustin Hoffman and De Niro? De Niro, Untouchables. Actually, Meet the Parents would be one. Of course, Taxi Driver. Meet the Parents being kind of the big surprise one because it was like it's a really funny movie and he fit that so well, and it's so out of at that point in time what he was known for. He's done a lot of wacky comedies and stuff over the last 20 years, but at the time he did Meet the Parents, that was a big standout. Dustin Hoffman, actually, I guess he was in the sequel to Meet the Parents. Would not pick that one for him though. I don't know. I'm not coming up with any for Dustin Hoffman off the top of my head. Like I'm thinking of movies, but they don't immediately go like. There's a lot of times that I've seen great movies, but like I've seen Rain Man. Of course, that's a classic performance from Dustin Hoffman. But I'm giving you that's just the right answer to say. I haven't watched Rain Man in 5 years. I don't remember the last time I watched it, but it wasn't. I don't think it was 10 years ago, but it's been since before I had my YouTube channel. So it's weird to say that's my favorite. I haven't watched it in a while, but it's my favorite. David Patterson, someone in the comment section of your IMDb top 15 video was criticizing me for holding Inception higher than The Godfather Part 2. It bothered me because both are some of my all-time favorites. Yeah, I mean, people like that are being, they're being stupid. It's the IMDb top 15. The whole point of the list is that they're the best movies of all time. And they're two very different movies. So to even compare and contrast them is weird. And like on my list, I had Inception way higher than Godfather Part 2. And I firmly stand by that. Like I hadn't watched The Godfather or 1 and 2 in about 10 years. So I watched them and I watched the first one. I was like, man, this one really holds up. I really enjoyed this one. But I've never been someone that really connected all that well with Godfather Part 2 the way other people do. And I watched it this time and I went, yeah, I connected with the first Godfather, but I didn't really connect with the second one. And so there's all kinds of reasons we rank things differently, but some of it's just frustrating. Yeah, but people are just weird like that. Charlie Bushman, hey Sean, what are your thoughts on Boys season 2 so far? I've only seen the first episode, and so it's kind of more like catch you up to where things are at, teasing some plot lines. But I've only seen episode 1, so I don't have much to say. I haven't watched season 1 since I watched it the first time when it debuted a year ago, and so then watching this episode was a little bit of catch up, reminding myself, oh yeah, this show's really intense, but it wasn't. I don't have any takes on it. All I can really say is that I did not immediately get right back on board with the show. I didn't be like, man, I can't wait to watch the next episode. It's kind of like, okay, now I remember what this show is like. But I didn't get hooked. Bryce Bailey, would you like to see Fantastic Four introduced Ant-Man 3 or wait for their own solo film? I don't really have a strong opinion on the matter. Because it kind of depends on the plot line they go with. There's theory, discussion, that what if part of the nature of the Fantastic Four suddenly appearing is that they're actually from like the 60s and Hank Pym. And the accident that gives them their special powers locked them in the quantum realm for 50 years. And so then they emerge post Endgame as these characters from 50 years ago. That's interesting to me. I would love it if they went that direction. I would love it if the Fantastic Four had a bunch of stuff that kind of took place in the 60s, 70s, 50 years ago, and then it's kind of fish out of water in the present. I think there's a lot of, if you're trying to think of how do you keep making the MCU fresh and interesting, that would be fun. So if you do that, you introduce the Fantastic Four in flashbacks with a de-aged Hank Pym working with Reed Richards. I love that idea. The idea that they're introduced and they're already the Fantastic Four, I don't like that, I don't think. But if you do something where it's flashbacks, there's some stuff there that I could get really excited about. And the idea that then when you do Fantastic Four, you have Hank Pym as a side character, de-aged. I'm digging it. Cameraman 9000, what are your thoughts on Mr. Fantastic rumored to be a person of color? I don't really have any opinions on it. The actor that they were rumoring putting the images of. I didn't immediately. I know I recognize the guy, but I don't know what I know him from. So I don't have any particular opinions on that specific casting. There's nothing about Fantastic Four that would tie them to a specific skin color. There's not, and so I don't have an issue. Like if you change it, it doesn't. There's if you take T'Challa and you make him a white guy, we got big problems here. There's enormous problems if you do that at its core. But Fantastic Four just isn't in that category of like the skin color doesn't matter in that regard. So if it was a good fit, cool. If it's a good actor, I like the John Krasinski fan cast. I'm a fan of that one, and I think I want him to have his own superhero franchise, and I think he naturally fits that the nature of that character because he has a little goofiness to him that I think fits well with Reed Richards. But in general, I don't really have thoughts on it. It's kind of, as long as it's a true translation of the things that matter, and it's not a reinterpretation to add 21st century politics. I wouldn't want that, but I don't really care about it. Rich Reviews, hypothetically, how many theaters will be around in 5 years? I have no clue. I mean, obviously there's no way to make a guess on something. I remove the year 2020 out of the equation. I don't even know how many movie theaters are out there to even make a guess on something like that. But we are in such a time of flux right now that with such dramatic events happening, so dramatically shifting our economy and the film industry, that there's no way to even guess on something like that. Dayton Radunsky, favorite Kubrick film, Doctor Strangelove. I think I don't really have a favorite. I don't like to pick favorites on things I haven't watched recently, so it's not something I really have an opinion on. But honestly, when I went back and watched her IMDb videos, it surprised me that there aren't any James Cameron films in the top 15 because he is making so many classics. Yeah, but it's a weird list though. It's a very odd list if you really think about why is that you can't figure out the pattern to it, because it's like 12 Angry Men feels so random on that list, and then like Forrest Gump which feels like a random addition. So you can't really pinpoint what led some of these movies to be there. Bryce Bailey, would you like to see Arrowverse cameos in Flashpoint similar to how Ezra Miller's Flashpoint appeared in CW during Crisis? I doubt it. I really doubt. I can't. I'm having a hard time thinking of a scenario where they would do that wouldn't, like, you can just even like on so many levels, like the look of them is cheaper because it's a TV show budget. There's all these kind of reasons as to why they have to do what they have to do with those shows, and so then you put those filmed for the big screen. I have a hard time seeing how that would work. So I don't think so. Nicholas, will you rank the Scream movies again when the Scream 5 comes out? Absolutely. That is a 100% likelihood. 99% likelihood. Let's add the 1% chance that something bonkers happens, but of course I will. Rich Reviews, would you want to see a sequel to The Social Network? Is there a story that would be a sequel to The Social Network? Like Mark Zuckerberg going to Senate hearings, the movie. I don't know. I don't know what the story is, so it's tough to see it. David Patterson, have you seen Zodiac? Actually, no, I have not. And funny you should ask that, because that's going to be watched very, very soon. We would have watched it a couple of days ago. My wife wanted to. It's been interesting to watch her actually want to watch David Fincher films, which I was not expecting her to be so positive on so many of these David Fincher films. Zodiac's the one she wants to watch the most, but it's the one neither one of us have seen before. And so since we have, I've got like at least a month to watch the David Fincher films, and there's ones we've already seen. So she's like, let's watch that. I was like, well, let's space these out a little bit. So that's actually the reason I haven't watched it yet. I would have watched it this week if the wife had her way. Bryce Bailey, thoughts on the source claiming Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix will return for 2 Joker sequels. If they had to happen, what would you like to see out of a Joker sequel? My thoughts on it. Do I believe that Warner Brothers wants them to do that? Yes. So can I believe that Warner Brothers is trying to fill dump trucks up with piles of money to get these movies made? Absolutely. Because let's say the next one makes half as much money and they increase the budget to $100 million. That's still a very profitable film. The Joker's not expensive to make because they're not spectacle films by their nature. And so then they're basically overpriced, or the first one was an overpriced drama because it had a Joker skin on it. And it way outperformed the how much that genre normally makes. And so for Warner Brothers, it's pretty money if they bomb by comparison. They're not going to bomb. If they bomb by comparison, they still make a ton of money. And the track record of the Joker as a property on the big screen, look at how much money Suicide Squad made. Like everyone talks about, oh, it was a big failure, but it wasn't. It was, financially speaking, it was a huge film. And who was the draw for that film? It wasn't the Suicide Squad. The public didn't know who they were, but they put Joker in the marketing, and it made a ton of money. What happened when they put him in The Dark Knight? They win an Oscar. Like this character, he has a much better track record than Batman does. He hasn't had as many at-bats, but he has a better track record. And so I absolutely believe that they're trying to do it. I don't know if this report is true, but I believe that they want it to happen. Do I want it? I don't think so. I think that movie works as a standalone, and it's the WB learning the wrong lesson. The lesson should be, cool. What if we do these character studies of our properties that are these one-off stories that they're not expensive to make, but they use this IP, this intellectual property that has high demand, and we make interesting films out of it. Like give directors a chance to really stretch their dramatic chops, and we use the comic book movie skin on dark psychological dramas. That's what Todd Phillips did. And it was a very good, successful experiment. So I think that's what they should do. I don't think that they should do this. And I don't think Todd Phillips makes good sequels. Todd Phillips has done a lot of really, there's no shortage of Todd Phillips movies I really enjoy. Not as sequels, though. And I think when you get hey, Todd Phillips, we'll give you $20 million to make a sequel to The Hangover, he'll take your $20 million and he'll make a movie. He just won't make a good one. What would I want to see? I don't know what you do. That's the problem. I don't know how you take this version of the Joker because it's not really designed to feed into Batman. It's not really, that's not the source of it. So I don't, and what made the movie work is that you could root for the character while being horrified for him. That's what made it work. And so it could comment on a bunch of different stuff at once. I don't know what you do. I don't know how you maintain the integrity of the message of the first one if you do a sequel. So I do not have an answer because I do not want the movie and I don't see how it works. Crystal, Sean, what do you think is the best or your favorite decade of foreign movies? I would have to go the 80s because that's my era. That's when I grew up. Those are the movies that made me love films. If you look at my top 10 favorite movies, it's 1976 to 1991. That era right there, that's it for me. I enjoyed Unhinged more than Tenet. Unhinged gave me exactly what I wanted. The sound mixing in Tenet really hurt the movie for me. And that's what I think is tough. That's one of the things what makes reviewing movies, comparing movies tricky, is that obviously Tenet has much higher ambitions. It's trying to accomplish more. It's aiming way up here. And Unhinged is like, let's do a B movie. But Unhinged delivered that B movie it was trying to deliver, and Tenet fell below. And so you compare them, and it seems weird to say what you just said, but I get it. I totally understand why someone would think that. Nicholas, what do you think of Quentin Tarantino only doing one more film? I have a hard time believing that's true. I have a hard time thinking that he'll actually want to stop because he loves movies too much. And it's hard to think that he only has one more story to tell. So I don't believe it. I don't think it'll actually play out that way. A lot of people say things like that until you're on the other side and you say, I've got the next 30 years of my life left. He's not 60 yet. He's let me look it up real quick. He's late 50s, but he's like 58, I think. 57 is 57. So he pretty safely has 20 more years left in his life, maybe 30 years left. Like he could live 40 more years. Clint Eastwood is 90. Clint Eastwood is 90 years old and still directing movies. So the idea that Quentin Tarantino, 33 years younger, only has one more movie, I'm not sure. I know that doesn't sound real to me. And Clint Eastwood's pretty uneven with his movies, but he has put out a number of very good movies and celebrated movies and hit movies in the last 10 years, 30 years older than Quentin Tarantino. But just even, is Schindler's List the only film you never want to watch again, despite it being really good? Probably not. I mean, I don't. It's the classic example of it because it's a Spielberg movie. Of course, awards, everyone talks about it. IMDb top 15. But it's inherently not. It's like the opposite of everything else that Spielberg does. It's the opposite of a popcorn film. So I'm sure there's others that I'm just not coming to mind at this moment. Luke the Film Fam, do you like John Hughes movies? Yeah, of course. I mean, he's did all kinds of classic comedies, and whether he directed them, wrote the script for them, he was involved in so many classics that I've talked about in a number of my videos about 80s comedies and stuff like Christmas movies even. Bryce Bailey, if you could only have a new Alien or new Predator movies for the rest of your life, which would you choose? It's tough to say because we've seen more success with the Alien franchise. It's easier to know what the path that would go down. So I think by default I have to say Alien franchise because you can think of more ways to expand that, different types of stories to tell, different places that to do that. The nature of the Predator franchise, they're all kind of the same story. David Patterson, hasn't Ben Mendelsohn already been in a Nolan film? He was Daggett in Dark Knight Rises. I am way far behind on these questions, but yes, you are correct. I didn't catch that when I was reading it, but yeah, he is. It's one of those ones you always forget. Every time I watch that movie, it's like, oh yeah, he's in this because he didn't become the guy that he is, like the consciousness where everyone knows who he is until after that movie. And so now you watch it, oh yeah, that's him. But yeah, he was in there. Didn't do much, but he's in there. Bryce Bailey, David Patterson, Luke the Film Guy. Are there any movie franchises that you want to re-rank? Yeah, a bunch. Pretty much all the ones that I ranked back in 2017, but haven't had a new movie come out. I want to re-rank them. So Pirates of the Caribbean, actually Alien franchise. That's happening next month. Star Trek is probably happening next month. The Aliens is very likely to happen in the next month because it's something I'm working on and I'm watching through those movies. So that's very likely to happen in October. Star Trek, I've watched 5 of the movies in the last week, or 2 weeks. I don't know how long it's been. Time's all kind of the same now. So Star Trek's one that's been on my mind that I'd like to re-rank on based on my current criteria standards by which I do things. But any of the big franchise, like Indiana Jones, probably I need a re-ranking of those because it's like a podcast. So all of the stuff from 2017 that hasn't been redone, I would like to redo. Sean, hey, that's my name. Who would you rather get a drink with? Christian Bale's American Psycho or Jake Gyllenhaal's Nightcrawler or Norman Bates? Jake Gyllenhaal, because he's going to take me on the adventure. I just need to watch my back. But the other two are just scheming to kill me. Jake Gyllenhaal So long as I'm helpful to him, he'll take me on a fun adventure. Richard DeSoto, I don't think Tenet should have a sequel because I don't want to risk something like Avatar happening where Nolan focuses on Tenet sequels for 20 years. Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, but there's not reason to fear that for Christopher Nolan. Like if he says, hey, I'm going to do 3 Tenet sequels, right, I'm agreeing with you. If he doesn't announce anything and then he's like, oh, by the way, I'm going to do a Tenet sequel in 2027, I'm with you. But even fundamentally, it's different because he took 12 years to make Avatar. Between Titanic and Avatar, there's 12 years. So immediately you're like, oh, that's a long time doing Avatar. And then he went, now I'm going to do a sequel. So you went into it already being like, he's spending a lot of time on Avatar. Then we watched Avatar and went, ooh, this doesn't set up a world that doesn't set up an obvious sequel where Tenet does set up obvious sequels or sequel franchise potential. So I would agree with you. I do not want him to spend 20 years on this, but I don't, at this moment in time, I don't have reason to think that that's what's taking place. Alexander, would you appreciate it if I sent you the Human Centipede trilogy? You would get a good laugh out of me. You wouldn't get me to watch it, but you would get a good laugh out of me in the fan mail video. Gamerman, well, the reason I ask about Iris is because I see people complaining at the Flash's new showrunner, Eric Wallace, is giving her over uses of screen time. So with Flash season 6 onward, yeah. I mean, I think that's. I mean, I stand by what I said before. The specific amount of screen time she gets, doesn't matter too much to me. It's the usage of the character as the team leader is the stuff that I was like, I don't think this is not the right way to give her an interesting dynamic. Gamerman, do you think the new showrunner has improved her or not? Also, you could add your thoughts on how he's changed the show. I think Eric's a great new voice. I don't know when he took over. I don't know. I mean, as for the showrunner, you can just look at my ranking. That would be my take on where he took over and how I thought things are going. I'm not sitting around thinking about who the showrunner is and tracking things like that to be able to give you a satisfying answer to your question, unfortunately. Sean, out of these 3 actors, Tommy Wiseau, Daniel Radcliffe, Daniel Day-Lewis, who would make the most personally interesting Batman? Who would make the best Batman? I mean, the best would obviously be Daniel Day-Lewis. You would just write the Batman to his age. And so when you have a world-class actor, of course, he would be the best. Who would make the most interesting Batman? Because it's not really what makes it interesting isn't just the actor, it's the script and the director and the direction of the story, not the director sense. In which case, you can't really say because Tommy Wiseau, it's just such weird casting. That'd immediately be interesting. Would immediately be bad, but it doesn't immediately mean it would be interesting. Bryce, which further out there Batman villain, Mad Hatter, Mr. Freeze, Poison Ivy, would you like to see in a grounded take in the Reeves-Batson trilogy? I think Mr. Freeze, because of the Heart of Ice plot line, what they did with Batman, the animated series, has a lot more grounded emotion to the character. Like, you have to find a way to take the sci-fi elements and connect them to reality. But at its core, you have a scientist who accident happens. He's trying to save his wife. He turns to crime to save her, and because he's lost his humanity, there's interesting emotion in that, as opposed to Poison Ivy. Poison Ivy's never been one that I've cared about all that much. Luke the Film Fan, which movie would you least want a sequel to? I don't like off the top of my head. I have no clue. It's like an abstract question of all the potential movies out there. Which one would you least want? So it's like doing a negative ranking off a hypothetical. So like, I don't want a Schindler's List 2, but I'm just gonna throw it out like a random idea. So I kind of have to have a point of reference. So like which it's just not an interesting answer because it's like literally picking these dramatic films that it would be blasphemous to make a sequel to them. It's just offensive to do it. So I don't want sequels to those. But like on a different level, like The Dark Knight Rises, people are like, oh, do you think Christian Bale should come back? And would Justice League have been better if he had been in it? And they supposedly would have brought $50 million to get Christian Bale to come back. I hate all of that. Like the whole idea, if you put Christian Bale's Batman in the DCEU, it undermines the integrity of what Nolan was doing. So I don't want that. So, but there's 1,000 of these I could go down the path of hypothetical movies that I don't want to see and different reasons why, but that is just a very broad category to address. Jesse DeMain, I don't know if this is an unpopular opinion. Joker is a movie I'd probably never watch again. It's very good. It's very well made, but it feels like a film that's worth watching one time. Yeah, I haven't rewatched it. I own it. I have it on my shelf. I believe a fan sent it to me, and I want to watch it again and get my wife to actually watch it. That's tough to get that one to happen. But it's not a movie that, like, as soon as it was available, I was like, man, I got to watch that one again. It's just not that type of movie. Crystal, do you think that DC is going to have a good future, or do you think there is going to be even more downhill? I mean, if you watched any of my DC fandom coverage, I did on my most anticipated list of movies coming out. I'm extremely excited for what DC's doing. Like they've got a great lineup of properties and directors that I think most of them look really, really good. So I don't think they're going more like, I guess I would just disagree. Like the question's kind of odd to me because I just disagree with the kind of the premise of the question, which is, do you think they'll go even more downhill? Well, they're not going downhill. They've been going uphill since Justice League. And I'm very negative on Justice League, but I like Batman v Superman. I really like Man of Steel and Wonder Woman. Most people like Wonder Woman. And so I think the idea that are they going to even more downhill? I think they've been going uphill for quite a while. And I've been positive on all these movies they've been putting out recently, and they're different in different direction. Obviously, Joker made a ton of money, got a bunch of awards, bunch of people's top 10 lists of the year, including mine. So I like Birds of Prey. So the question itself, I think, assumes things that I don't agree with the assumption. And I'm very excited for what they announced at DC Fandom. Edders, do you like Spielberg Cruise? Do you like the Spielberg Cruise War of the Worlds? I think about 3/4 of that movie is pretty great. I've never been a fan of it. I didn't hate it. It was one of those movies that, as a guy that likes Tom Cruise, Steven Spielberg, and sci-fi, I went, okay, that happened. And so I've never had big, strong feelings about it. I was underwhelmed by it because, like I said, big fan of Cruise, Spielberg, and sci-fi. So, but it wasn't like I watched it like, this thing sucks. It wasn't that at all. It was just, okay, that wasn't as good as I was hoping it would be. Well, I am way far behind on these. I keep trying to catch up and go faster, but like I'm 30 minutes behind still. Nicholas, what streaming service do you think has the best content? Netflix. I think Netflix is still the champ. I have a ranking of the streaming services, and I plan to update that soon. I just need more time with Peacock and maybe Quibi to be able to comment on a little bit more, but Netflix, I think, is the king. That they have a very broad catalog of older stuff, and then they have the biggest catalog of original content because they got there first and started cranking that stuff out. And a lot of it is kind of garbage, and a lot of it is filler, but then a lot of it isn't. They've got solid stuff in there, so I think it's safe to say Netflix is the best, unless you just are very, if you're just a family Disney person. Disney Plus is that. So, but overall, Dayton, how do you feel about Siskel and Ebert? I grew up watching them. I own several of Roger Ebert's books and have read them. When Siskel died, I followed Ebert and Roper. So I mean, I've followed all of them, very familiar with their work and watched tons of their reviews. And to a certain extent, that an influence on the fact that I do this, because I you know, that they were the people that did what they were the equivalent of what I do back in the day. There was just them, but they were the ones that I watched. Nicholas, what is your posting schedule? I don't know I'm not sure what you're asking. If you're asking what am I posting this next week, I don't know. I'm not planning ahead right now. I have things I'm working towards and things that are on my mind, but I'm not, because I'm homeschooling, things are a little bit too much in flux for me to want to state super clearly, this is exactly what I'm doing, because I have to make too many adjustments. But I don't know off the top of my head. I have a video for today. It's my favorite moment for every Star Wars movie. I did a version of it for Patreon about 6 months ago, but new movies still aren't coming out. So kind of having to pull this from some of those ideas that we did before, doing it on the main channel. And guess that'll go out in about 2 hours. Editors, just wanted to thank you for these Q&As, and thanks for being one of my favorite YouTubers. I always look forward to your takes on movies. I appreciate it. Very cool. Luke, the film fan. My mom didn't like Warrior. Heartbreaking. Charlie Bushman. Sean, what are your thoughts about the rumor that Shuri will become Black Panther in the sequel and T'Challa won't be recast? I don't have any thoughts on that. I mean, I think it's I think that's a rumor is gross. It's a gross thing because it's not real. Kevin Feige has not decided that. Like that, he died, 2-3 weeks ago. And so the idea that already they've made a decision and then that it's trickling out into the rumor mill, it's gross. It's gross. David Patterson, how dare you say 12 Angry Men is random on the IMDb top 15? Pretty random. Because if you know, and I know you're joking, but like if you set aside, like, it's trying to think, why is that a movie of all, like, why is of all the movies that could be from the black and white era that could be the one that cracks the IMDb top 15 in light of who's on the internet? Why on earth is that the one that people have voted up? It is random. If you've seen them, do you like Labyrinth and Dark Crystal? I have not seen them. Nicholas, who's your favorite cameo in The Office? I don't know. I don't really think about the cameos on the show. That sort of happened a little bit more in the later seasons where they started doing a little bit more of that stuff, and I just don't rewatch those. And I don't normally think about it from the perspective of the cameos, so I don't have a really good satisfying answer on that one, unfortunately. Gamerman, okay, to talk more positively on The Flash, what are your thoughts on Talam Cavanaugh's characters, Harrison Wells, Harry Sherlock? I liked it at first. I don't really like it. I don't like. I think it's been played out, and like when they do the Council of the Wells, and there's 7 of them, and he's doing funny voices. It's just too cartoony. I don't think it works. It just gets just very cringe inducing, and so I think they played the idea out too much. It worked at first, but when you're 6 seasons in and you've done so many different versions, I'm not a fan of that. He was great. I really did dig it at first, but I don't like what they're currently doing. Rich Reviews. Well, I went to see Labyrinth last weekend at the Alamo, and 25 people showed up. The server said that the screening was the busiest they have been all day. I believe it. Theaters are not getting people to show up. Dayton, it's absolutely disgusting that Netflix still hasn't removed Cuties. Will you ever do a review, or do you have no interest in seeing it? No. No. I will not be reviewing Cuties. I will not be watching Cuties. From what I've heard, people that have kind of like really walked through it, the central message of the movie is actually actually aligns with the movie's critics about don't sexualize children. But at the end of the day, it's to create the movie they made, they had to have children do things that I don't think adults should be having children do, and they shouldn't be filming it, and they shouldn't be sharing it for millions of people. And because of this, they have mistreated these children. And as like the director, like with the best of intentions and the best message in mind, did something that I just can't imagine a scenario where I'd watch the movie and be like, yeah, there was. Now that I've seen the full scene of these girls choreographed doing all this stuff, now the message is powerful enough that it's okay to exploit children to make a movie about not exploiting children. I don't see that getting there. I in general, would not be interested in a movie about a coming of age story about girls joining a dance troupe that's French. That would not, generally speaking, be a movie I would be inclined to watch. But I also like watching 11-year-old girls provocatively dance and stuff. Like it's like, everything about it sounds like something I would hate watching, and I just have issues with it. And the other problem to it is, at its core, if they created a movie that, whatever their intentions, there are creeps out there, and they created a movie that the creeps can just hit the mute button and be creeps. And I have problems with that as well. And Netflix is hosting it, and I have problems with that. Charlie Bushman, favorite character in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I've never seen Brooklyn Nine. I've never seen an episode of it, not one. What is the most recent movie you've seen? The most recent movie I finished was Star Trek: The Motion Picture, the first one from 1978. I watched that last night. And then before that, I watched Panic Room. So that was our double feature last night. It was Panic Room, and then Star Trek: The Motion Picture. Measure statement. Final question. Because I see you're running out of time, I'm not running out of time. I started late, so I just need to talk faster, but I'm not running out of time. When Soul comes out, are you looking forward to re-ranking the Pixar films? And do you ever get tired of re-watching that many films? Well, it's not quite like it's not cool. Yeah. Are you looking forward to re-ranking the Pixar films? Not specifically, because I don't have a new angle on it, so I'm not specifically looking forward to doing that. That's just kind of part of my routine that I do, but I'm not specifically looking forward to it. Do you ever get tired of rewatching that many films? It can be exhausting to have to watch movies the way I do, which is I look forward 3-4 months. What's everything I need to watch to do all the rankings I need to do for all these new releases coming out? And so then it's overwhelming, because it's literally like a list of 100 movies that I have to watch, but I also have 150 days to do it. And so you have to weigh all of that. So, yeah, it's a lot. It's more that is what I feel. The good side to it is that it forces me to watch different things and different types of things, because I'm trying to do different franchises and things. So I don't just gravitate towards watching the things that I want to watch by default. And so there's a lot of good that comes from it. And there's a lot is frustrating. David Madison, I often look at my list of favorite directors and think David Fincher is too low, but then I remember Alien 3 exists. It does. It does. Dayton, favorite bad movie? The Story of Ricky. The Story of Ricky. I actually have a review of it on my channel. Ricky-O, The Story of Ricky. It's a martial arts film from 30 years ago. It's like The Room of Asian martial arts films. Nicholas, what do you think about John Wick 4 and 5 being filmed at the same time? I wanted them to end it with the third one, so the idea that they're doing back-to-back 4 and 5 makes me... It's not a good sign, and it's leaning into things I don't want them to do. So I don't feel good about it. Luke, would you ever do a rewrite of video of Alien 3? No, because it would be a totally different pitch, and it would just be something totally different. It wouldn't be how to fix. I mean, I guess if the question would I ever do, would I pitch my follow up to Aliens? If that's the question, and it's not so tied to being Alien 3. So you're thinking, how would you change the movie that we got? Well, I wouldn't change the movie that we got. I would just throw that out. Think, what else can you do with these characters in this universe with this xenomorph thing? That's the direction I would take things. It's not like, oh, if you just tweak this one thing, all's better. Have you watched or plan to watch The Devil All the Time? I haven't watched it. I don't know if I'll watch it. I just don't know. It's a matter of time. It's a matter of a bunch of different things that it's. I don't always know what everyone's going to ask me about, and then even the movies that people ask me about, I'll post a review and they won't. No one will watch the review. It's very discouraging. I posted my ranking of the Community seasons a couple days ago. My last video I put out, and I've gotten so many requests for that over the years. And the video is just a bomb, a total dud, right out of the gate. No interest. And fans of Community are like, yeah, finally, I've been waiting for this. But as a percentage of my audience and what did it do on the YouTube algorithm and everything, it's just a total bust. And that stuff's really discouraging. And so, like, I'm actively moving away from trying to be all things to all people. I can't review all movies. I can't tackle all these shows. I have a very good idea what does and doesn't work and how to stay within my niche. And so I'm trying to do more and more of that. And reviewing bleak period piece dramas is not a top priority. Cameraman, which CW father figure is the best? Jonathan Kent, Quentin Lance, Joe West, Jonathan Kent. No debate. It's Jonathan Kent. All day, every day. Charlie Bushman, any plans to review any more foreign language films in the near future? Similar to what you did with Three Idiots. Plans, no. Will I? Yes. Like I just said, I'm in homeschooling mode. I've got a lot going on to where I don't have room to do as many videos as I had been doing, and I don't have room to experiment like I did before. Even the fact that there's not new movies coming out, like it was, okay, how do I make it for the next 2 months while new movies are coming out? Okay, how do I make it for 4 months while new movies are coming out? Oh, looks like Tenet's coming out. Oh, movies are going to come out again. Nope, that was just a blip. We don't have movies anymore, and it's just tough. Luke, the film, film fan, would you ever rank the Star Trek shows? Nope. Because I can't watch all of it. It's what 21, 20, 24, 28, 29, 31, but like 33 seasons of television. Seasons, not episodes. 31 seasons of television. So if each season was 1 hour long, if they were 1 hour long, that would mean it would require 31 hours to do that video. But they're not. They're like, they average more than 10 hours. So that's 330 hours to do one video. Probably longer than that. And that's not possible. David Patterson, do you plan on ever watching The Wolf of Wall Street? Yes. Nicholas, what is your dog's name? Bo and Skull are my two dogs. Gamerman, since The Flash is at season 7, the contract re-signing, do you think this could be a good time to do what Smallville did, where a lot of the cast who has been around since season 1 leaves and The Flash reboots itself? No. I think the premise of the show doesn't require that the way Smallville did. Smallville required it because you had him going from high school to college to adult life. And the idea that his friends of high school would be with him through college would be with him into adult life as he moves to Metropolis doesn't make a lot of sense. And then, it was with Lex, they had to change some things up. The Flash, it just doesn't have any of that. So I don't. They've already cycled through a few cast members here and there, but some change ups I'd be fine with. But the basic concept of it, if they felt they needed to do a reboot like that for the Flash, they should just end the show. Yeah. Favorite amusement park in Texas: Six Flags Over Texas or Schlitterbahn in New Braunfels, the water park. David Patterson, while I still really like the MCU, I don't necessarily love it anymore, but I still will never say I regret watching any of the MCU films since they really started the path that led me to watching films now. All right, cool. Rich Reviews, do you think Duel of the Fates would have made a better film than Rise of Skywalker? Also, thoughts on Daisy Ridley saying Rey could have been Obi-Wan's granddaughter. I mean, Duel of Fates looked like it was a film with more artistic integrity. So it would have been a better film, period. Thoughts on Daisy Ridley saying Rey could have been an Obi-Wan's granddaughter? I talked about this to some extent in my video, Top 10 Disappointments this last week, but it's just, they didn't have a plan. That's the problem. Like, the fact that it ties to Obi-Wan doesn't mean anything because that's not what they did with it. The point is that they didn't have a direction. They didn't commit to anything, and that's infuriating. Like, it's Star Wars. Like, how do you not have a plan? How do you just make it up? And then it's even not even that they, like, George Lucas was making it up as he went along, but it was George Lucas was making it up as he went along. It wasn't passing the baton, and then now you make up the next piece, and now, we don't like where that went. It's infuriating. Gamerman, hey Sean, I'm going to be doing an Arrow week on Twitter. Wouldn't mind if I tag you on all the posts. You wouldn't be the only YouTuber because I have 3 others who have already gotten approval from. I don't know how many posts you're talking about. If you're talking about a lot of posts, I don't really want you to tag me in a lot of posts. I don't mind if you tag me in some posts, kind of. But if you're going to tag me in a lot of posts, it really depends on what you're doing. Because if you are creating a scenario where my mentions and stuff are just clogged up because there's just so many things there, that's a problem. But being aware of something is not a problem. Alexander, thoughts on starting to review anime? Chris Stuckman does, but I understand if that's not your thing. It's just not my thing. I don't watch anime. When I have reviewed anime, no one watched it anyway. So it's just not my thing. So I'm not looking to expand my coverage really. That doesn't really serve my subscribers. Everyone, because I cover big franchises, it's very broad appeal, but then it kind of touches everyone a little bit. And everyone has other things that they like. So they're like, hey, you should do more foreign films. You should do more anime. You should do more TV shows. And the more that I go down all those paths, the more that my channel just loses its flavor and its way. And I put out content that nobody watches. And so I'm trying to do less and less of that. Oscar, do you think DC's new lineup, they'll be more popular than Marvel? Over the next 2 years, I think their movies for the next 2 years will make more money than Marvel's movies for the next 2 years. I think that will happen. Defining it as more popular, it's a little bit more complex, but I think their lineup for right now is more mainstream. Luke, do you like American Graffiti? I've actually never seen American Graffiti. As wacky as that sounds, I have never seen American Graffiti. No reason. It just hasn't happened. It has been on my mind for 20 years. And just never happened. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. I'll have an exclusive video on Patreon, actually, about Star Wars in, about 30 minutes. So you get more content from me very shortly. Thank you so much for your support. I appreciate it.